tonight, the CPP political party says no to any election in Cameroon, with the current socio-political tension rocking the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon. Edith Kabangwala and members of the Stand Up for Cameroon initiative were speaking in the northwest region of Cameroon that they visited recently. In this newscast, we take you to a compound which is hosting close to 50 displaced Anglophone Cameroonians. They left Bello, Mamfe and other parts of Momo division in the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon. Also in this newscast, we talk about the decentralization ministry that was put in place to tackle the current socio-political crisis rocking the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon 2 months after. What fruit has it been able to bear so far? We talk about this in this edition of the Primetime Newscast. Those are headlines. We shall be right back. Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you so much for joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe television. It is not only in Nigeria that the English-speaking Cameroonians have so far been escaping to. Hundreds are being displaced within the national territory. One of these displacement camps is in Quen, Bamenda Free Subdivision, where members of the Stand Up for Cameroon initiative, led by Edith Kabangwala, visited recently. Let us take a look at the day-to-day ordeals of this population in the following report. A busy morning in this compound in Quen, Bamenda Free Subdivision, northwest region of Cameroon. At a glance, one could capture a picture of a ceremony in the making. But these women in the kitchen are preparing food for displaced English-speaking Cameroonians. Behind this busy atmosphere are shocking and breathtaking stories of mothers, young girls and kids who fled violence, looting and the destruction of their homes in Batibu, Bello, Mamfe in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon.
They sleep for bush. They talk plenty things. I say no. House there for here empty. Made the time we should do.
Mamata Tendo is hosting the over 40 persons from some of the conflict-hit localities in Anglophone Cameroon.
No, we should don't forget. I send yourself for village. Any person will know they know say because I say me all man come.
She says that living together, even in scarcity, is better than the scary bushes where women and young children were seeking refuge.
That day we will come again with the shoot my son.
This is another woman in distress who recounts how her son was brutally murdered and dumped behind her home in Batibo.
Some kind of the party, you know, the evening chop. We won't put fire so for even person small teacher.
She is yet to recover from the shock, she says. This grandmother is unwell, but could not stay in her Batibo residence where her life was in danger. She adds that security forces destroyed her home. The testimonies of others are similar. They are blaming law enforcement officials for failing to protect them.
Yes, direct follow.
The president of the Stand Up for Cameroon initiative, Kawala, and her team are here to bring the message of hope, distribute gifts to the people, and remind them that a political transition in the country is the ultimate solution.
So we want to enter a political transition with neutral people who can help us to have a dialogue, to talk together as Cameroonians. We need to dialogue, to ask ourselves what is our history, what brought us to this situation, and how do we live together once again as brothers and sisters. And for Stand Up for Cameroon, we must not take any particular group of people and say no, they cannot participate in the dialogue unless we have agreed that those people should go. Because I cannot say that I still want you to remain with me, then I refuse to dialogue with you. And for us as Stand Up for Cameroon, we want Cameroonians to remain together. But we are conscious that for that to happen, we must allow everybody to the dialogue table, and there is no taboo subject. We must discuss every subject If somebody says, I want secession, we must listen to that person. Why do you want secession? What has happened? And so on and so forth.
We now talk about the chief of Ashum village in Manyu division of the Southwest region of Cameroon that is currently seeking refuge in the Southwest regional headquarters of Boya. Chief Professor Agbo Bechem Peter Tambi is in Boya alongside his family members as well as other residents from Manyu that have escaped violence in that part of the country as a result of the chaotic atmosphere reigning in the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon. Why did he actually escape Manyu? Derek Jato in the following report provides an answer.
A descriptive picture of Ashum, a village in Upper Bayan subdivision of Manyu division.
The woman doesn't know where the husband has moved to. The children don't know where their parents have moved to. Many of the aged people don't even have phones to communicate with their children to tell them where they are. So actually it's quite a pathetic situation in Ashum.
He is Chief Professor Agbo Bechem, the traditional ruler of Ashum village.
There was a clash between Ambazonian soldiers and the military.
And some fingers are pointing at him to have masterminded the tense atmosphere now in his village.
Sometime around the 29th of April, top military information was reported to me as the chief of Ashum, informing me that the Ambazonian Defense Forces are about to set their base in Ashum with the complicity of Ashum children. That they are trying to form a base in a cave in my village called Mboguntai.
Chief Professor Agbo Bechem, telling his story, said his message was merely misinterpreted.
The following morning, I called the Vice Chairman of Traditional Council and I told him this is information that has arrived to me. I also called some elders in the village. I called the two presidents of the youth groups. The information was passed. I don't know how the information was managed. Some arguments, counter-arguments in the village arose. And I don't know how they turned the information to become that I am the person informing the military. I'm not the informant to the military about the people who are in Ashum and have even given names.
At press time, 3 of his relatives were still under custody.
They are still there, they have not yet been released. They've been there for about 4 days, for about 3 days. They have not been released.
In Boya, and on phone calling his chiefdom, a subject is responding that people are still in bushes and arguing that if members of the royal family are being arrested, then coming back home is not safe. But the traditional ruler is having this message to his subject.
Call on my elite to see how to help us reinstate them back in the village. We have a very strong and powerful elite. Many families have strong people like that. Many of them are accommodating them here. So we are now in our WhatsApp forum drawing up strategies to see how we can package some things, especially drugs, to the nurses that are in the village to see whether we can help them for these 3-4 days that many of them have been out of the village.
Ashum village could not have been in crisis if there was no Anglophone crisis. Reason why Chief Professor Agbo Bechem is calling on the government to even dialogue with the Ambazonians, if that would bring the long-awaited solution.
And when I mean dialogue, I will say this all the time. It is not dialogue between me and you, who already understand that when we talk well with government will listen. It should be the dialogue for those that we cannot even reach. So the dialogue with the Ambazonian, the people controlling the Ambazonian thing, those are the people we need to get dialogue with. We need to see how to penetrate, to see how they can use those that they have to penetrate and get these people, not being dangerous to them, if they can get hold of some of them. Those are the people to actually talk, so that they can, if they are going back to the bush, they can have a message back to the bush.
In the southwest region now, some government official field missions are now suspended or cancelled because of the security threat of what is known here as the Ambazonian Defense Forces.
But the government believes that the effective implementation of decentralization could be the solution to the Anglophone crisis. But what has the Ministry of Decentralization and Local Development been able to achieve 2 months after it was put in place? Opinions are diverse with regards to the newly created ministry that is being led by George Elanga Obam. He was appointed exactly 2 months ago to tackle the socio-political crisis rocking the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon and equally ensure the effective implementation of decentralization. Where are we today? Let's have the details with Rabiatu Aliu.
The major innovation of the March 2018 cabinet shake-up in Cameroon was the creation of the Ministry of Decentralization and Local Development. This ministry, headed by George Elanga Obam, was tasked by the president to come up with proposals on how to tackle the Anglophone crisis and ensure the effective implementation of decentralization, which to many has been a failure in Cameroon for decades. It is 2 months now that the Ministry of Decentralization and Local Development was put in place, and Cameroonians are still to begin feeling the impact of its existence. Minister George Elanga Obam is still to make an outing, a situational report on the level of decentralization and above all, propose solutions to the Anglophone crisis, rocking the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon.
2 mois, c'est court. Un ministre est nommé. Un organigramme n'est pas encore tracé.
An Edea-based council official has said that it is too early to evaluate the achievements of the Ministry of Decentralization and Local Development.
Vous ne pouvez pas créer un ministère et le rendre opérationnel et performant 2 mois après. C'est impossible.
Ferdinand Moutlen of the Union de Population du Cameroon political party thinks that a lot of administrative adjustment must take place before Cameroonians can start seeing the achievements of the ministry in at least 6 months from now.
Moi je dis après 6 mois, on peut commencer à voir si ça apporte quelque chose ou non.
But a Social Democratic Front mayor who reacted on phone says that if the Ministry of Decentralization and Local Development was put in place to solve issues related to the Anglophone crisis and the effective implementation of decentralization in Cameroon, then a lot would have been done by now. He added that they are still waiting for the actions of the newly created ministry. Meantime, Cameroonians are still to feel the impact of the newly created Ministry of Decentralization and Local Development.
And apart from decentralization, the government has maintained that Cameroon is one and indivisible as far as the Anglophone crisis is concerned. The day that is set aside to highlight the much talked about United Cameroon is going to be taking place in few days from now. That's the 20th of May here in the littoral region of Cameroon. Preparatory meetings to ensure hitch-free celebration of the 20th of May 2018 are ongoing. A meeting took place yesterday at the service of the littoral regional governor that was chaired by the governor himself, Samuel Dieudonné Dibois. It was an opportunity for opposition political parties to be urged to register before the 11th of May to participate in the National Day celebration, or considered as simply boycotting the national event. Details with Innocent Aze.
10 days from now, Cameroonians will converge on various ceremonial grounds to celebrate the 46th edition of the National Day. Preparations ahead of May 20 are intensifying across the 10 regions. Here in Douala Littoral Region, various commissions in charge with the organization of the 20th May Parade in Douala conversed in the conference hall of the governor's office to strategize on how to realize a hitch-free and distinct National Day celebration.
La particularité.
According to Governor Samuel Detainee Dubois, the particularity will be the putting in place of special squares by the site committee.
Qui est en charge des préparatifs.
Several other innovations have been set up, like the creation of a permanent unity village at the Bonanjo Party House, a football tournament to foster unity, and another for the African Nations Cup to be hosted by Cameroon with a pool to be played in Douala. Security will also be heightened. 45 squares have been reserved for secondary school establishments. Governor Samuel Detainee also mentioned the participation of all political parties in the littoral region.
Tous les partis politiques sont admis à défiler à Douala.
This will only be possible after registration that is due to end on May 11.
Après le 11 mai, nous considérons que
political parties that will fail to register before this deadline therefore had no plans of participating in the March Pass. At the end of the preparatory meeting of the National Day, the governor expressed satisfaction on the level of preparation and advanced other recommendations.
D'abord qu'elle continue à travailler de manière ardente, de manière.
He urged the various commission members to continue working with determination and patriotism.
Permet toujours d'avoir un plus.
The rendezvous has thus been booked for the 12th of May 2018 for the start of March Pass activities that will be accompanied by interreligious prayers.
And in health, the Africa Mercy has come to the end of our humanitarian 10-month mission to Cameroon during the stand-off ceremony that took place here at the Douala Seaport. The Public Health Minister, Andre Mamafuda, admitted government's inability so far to provide quality healthcare services to Cameroonians. He indicated that the coming of mercy ships has greatly helped the Cameroonian government in that regard. Details with Babla Jonathan.
Je ne vous dis pas ce qu'il a fait. Odilo, ce qu'il a fait. Merci, tu m'as arrangé.
After more than 3 decades of suffering with a facial deformity, she can celebrate following a successful surgery by health professionals of the Mercy Ships Humanitarian Organization. Like her, thousands of Cameroonians are equally celebrating the crossover from horrible health conditions to better and acceptable conditions.
Many people in the population have received surgery here on board the ship for a number of kind of maladies. For example, orthopedic surgery for children with bowed legs, children and adults as well who were born with cleft lip and palates on their faces, and also tumors on their face and jaw. Also, we have treated women suffering from obstetric fistula. Some of the women that we have treated suffered from that condition for 20 or more years before they received care. And so we celebrate those results. We're also happy for the cataract patients, many people blind from cataracts who were have their vision restored through a very simple operation.
1,400 health personnel were also trained during the 10-month stay of the Africa Mercy in Cameroon.
Our surgeons were treating the patients surgically. They were also training other surgeons and other healthcare professionals so that they can return to the hospitals in Cameroon and provide a higher level of care for the patients in the population. And so we've had mentorees in the surgical wards and in the operating rooms, and learning surgical techniques and nursing care, and also to use the equipment better in many hospitals around Cameroon.
At the send-off ceremony in Douala Wednesday, Cameroon's Public Health Minister, Andre Mamafuda, said government has taken measures to ensure continuity through the health professionals trained by Mercy Ships experts in a bid to continue upgrading healthcare services in Cameroon.
Everybody in their hospitals, and actually we decide to have a reference by pathologists. For example, Hôpital La Quintinie will be the reference concerning maxillofacial surgeries. The same Hôpital Central. You have a club food in Hospital Milan. You have Garoua, where we have a center concerning ophthalmology problems and the other hospitals. then the different health workers continue to work in their health facilities.
The African Mercy ship arrived Cameroon in August 2017 and will be leaving the Douala International Seaport in the days ahead.
The Nigeria's president again in the United Kingdom for medical treatment, Muhammadu Buhari, announced his trip to the UK via his Twitter account and added that he would be returning to Nigeria on the 12th of May 2018. It should be noted that it is not the first time that he is traveling to the United Kingdom for medical attention. Details with Simanjik and Gabriel.
After spending 4 months in London last year receiving treatment for an undisclosed illness, Muhammadu Buhari, 75, has returned to the United Kingdom for poor health. It will be the 4th time Buhari is seeking for medical treatment in the UK. According to his spokesman, Buhari saw his doctor last week in London on his way back from Washington, where he had met with the US President Donald Trump. Since the last time Buhari spent 4 months in London due to ill health, he has faced repeated questions about the real state of his health. These questions have become louder since he announced last month that he would be standing for re-election early next year, subject to receiving his party's nomination.
And that brings us to the end of this first segment of the news. Time for us to meet our guest. We shall be right back. Mancho, BBC and other detainees of the Anglophone crisis were at the military tribunal in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. Again, the case was adjourned to the 24th of May 2018. It has so far been criticized by many. Others are indicating that the government or the law should be allowed to take its course. Our guest tonight is a human rights lawyer, a common law lawyer, and a senior barrister at law, Barrister Frujan. So good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Talking Point.
Good evening, Mimi. Thank you for inviting me.
Tonight, like I said, we are going to be talking about the legal proceedings of Mancho, BBC and other detainees of the Anglophone crisis that has again suffered another adjournment. That was yesterday in the nation's capital. When you heard that the case was actually adjourned, when many were expecting a verdict, even though we are not supposed to comment on legal issues, especially with regards to the justice system in Cameroon, what was your reaction, Barrister?
I am flabbergasted. I don't even know what is going on. They had actually issued a verdict clearing him of certain charges and convicting him of others. The only thing left was to pronounce sentencing. Why do they keep adjourning just sentencing? Why? There is something that they are hiding. Or are they afraid that something will happen before the 20th of May? Even before the 20th of May, Mancho BBC was declared guilty about 1 or 2 months ago. And each time they have been bringing him back and forth. And you saw, I read somewhere that they were revolting yesterday in the court because the conditions of detention are unbearable.
It's not conducive.
Some have even been attacked. So, what is it that this system wants from English-speaking people?
Many people, like you indicated, are speculating. Some critics are speculating that adjourning the case to the 24th of May was strategic, given that, like you said, it is coming after the 20th of May, the day that Cameroonians are celebrating national unity. Do you think what's your reaction? Do you think that is the case here?
I believe that it is strategic as far as they are concerned. But as far as I'm concerned and many other lawyers are concerned, what is so strategic about pronouncing sentencing on some people who have already been declared guilty? All they need to do is come and read the sentence. and let them start serving, or if they are going to be discharged, let them go home.
And the more this
And
case...
I really, the whole thing smells funny. You go to Bamenda, you kidnap people, take them from their environment and their language. You come and try them in a language that they don't even understand, and before a military court, take the case of Mancho BBC. What did he do to appear in the military court? Has he been found with any arm? What has he done to appear in the military court? The coffin revolution that I know was a demonstration. That's a minor offense that it could have been tried in the magistrate court in Bamenda. Why take a man from Bamenda across the seas to Yaoundé to the military court? And now they are stuck. They cannot even give a sentence after they have given a verdict declaring him guilty on certain counts.
You are, of course, a legal mind because he's been declared guilty of secession, revolution.
Yeah, well, let them pass let them sentence him.
What would possibly be the results of such charges levied?
Well, I think I may be wrong. I think that they have a plan of sentencing all those Anglophones that were arrested between 11 and 15 years imprisonment. I don't know what their plans are. Some people have even suggested that they are doing that in order that the head of state can have something to do clemency on. Well, I don't believe that. He has declared a war against what he calls another part of his country. The war is going on, and he is sentencing people. Why not sentence Mancho BBC so that he knows, his friends, the 6 of them who were in court yesterday, so that they know that they are now serving their jail term? I don't understand what is going on. Well, they were supposed to have sentenced them from the day they declared them guilty.
And many people,
but they are also allowed. A judge has a right to say, okay, adjourn for sentencing. But you adjourn for sentencing, you have been adjourning after declaring him guilty. What is going on? Is he waiting for the amount of jail term coming from somewhere? Because this shows, it should show all Cameroonians that these judges are not free. They get the sentencing from somewhere to pronounce them.
Many people are equally worried about other detainees of the Anglophone crisis that have not been appearing in court for several months now.
For several months.
In the nation's capital, we have some in other parts of the country as well.
In Boya, there are about more than 400 people in detention. In Bamenda, the prisons are full. In Douala here, you have some. They have not been tried. What is... Well, to me, I call them all prisoners of war.
That is what you as a legal
man say. I call them prisoners of war. And the prisoners of war, they have protection under the Geneva Convention. So anybody who is a prisoner of war is supposed to be respected according to the international norms laid down by a convention in Geneva. Okay, they call them terrorists. If they are terrorists, okay, try them and sentence them. So that we know exactly what you want. You are neither trying them nor treating them like prisoners of war, nor releasing them. So what's going on?
Now, as the case is dragging on, tension is mounting, the violence is escalating in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. As far as the arrest and detention of many Anglophone activists is concerned, what is the implication on this crisis, the Anglophone crisis? What is the impact?
The impact has been felt from the day they kidnapped the leaders from Nigeria. It escalated the whole war. The war is now at its peak, and it's not going to get any better. I don't see how somebody would declare a war and at the same time sentencing people during a war situation. Because when you declare war and you arrest people and lock them up, I consider those people prisoners of war. And if they are not prisoners of war, if you call them terrorists, try them and sentence them. Take the case of Manchu BBC. The verdict was given more than 2 months ago that he was guilty of certain counts and released on certain counts. Now, this is only to sentence him. Why keep adjourning?
It was actually on the 25th of April that the military tribunal made it very clear.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
He's guilty of certain charges and acquitted of
certain
good number of charges.
Why not? Because in the normal procedure, they were supposed to pronounce the sentencing at the same time. But the judge has a right to adjourn at least one adjournment to be able to situate herself or himself on the sentencing. But they have since been adjourning. We have had about 3 or 4 adjournments already for somebody who has been declared guilty.
Now, the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms has actually come out with a report on the situation in the northwest and the southwest regions of the country, indicating that there is a gross human rights violation, like you were indicating. But it's not the first time that this commission is actually issuing reports on the situation on the ground. Don't you think the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedom can go further than just issuing reports?
The Human Rights Commission of this country has been put together by the government. So they are under the control and capacities of the government.
Do you mean reports?
Let me explain that.
By the commission cannot?
Yes, what they call violation of human rights, I call it gross violations of human rights and war crimes, crimes against humanity. Take, for example, villages have been burned down by soldiers. We have seen soldiers burning down villages. We have seen soldiers burning old people in homes. We have seen soldiers killing civilians carelessly in a war situation. You burn down.
Some legal minds will say is to restore calm in the region to make sure that things return to normal.
What, by burning down villages?
That is what some legal minds will say.
Well, I don't know what kind of legal minds you are talking about. When you go into a village and burn down the village during a war situation, you are committing a war crime. And when you shoot and kill civilians without taking care of protecting the civilians during war, that is a war crime.
So now, Barrister, before we go, what can really be done? The situation is escalating. Many people continue being displaced within and out of Cameroon.
Declared this war. Only the person who declared the war can also call for ceasefire, stand down, and come to the negotiating table. Release everybody to show good faith, come to the negotiating table, and the two parties talk. But now he thinks that Anglophones are all terrorists. Who is he going to talk to?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Barrister, for joining us tonight on Talking Point. We hope to have you some other time again.
Thank you for inviting me.
To our televiewers, it was equally a pleasure having you with us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television. Wishing you a blessed day in the company of our programs. Until we meet again, goodbye.